Habits that destroy your life. Many people live life wrongly and then they wonder why they suffer and why they are struggling. If you are not living life righteously, if you're chasing the wrong things, if you're living the wrong life, if you're thinking the wrong thoughts, then you will suffer. You have to start living life righteously in order for the suffering and the struggle to start leaving your life. So what does it mean to live life righteously? Living life righteously means your heart is motivated by sincerity. Living life righteously means a heart that is filled with God. Without having God in your heart, you may think you're living life righteously, but you're living in a deceit. You can't possibly be living life righteously without having God in your heart. Why? For God is the light. God is light. And so without having God in your heart, you will have darkness in your heart. And then you wonder, why do I struggle? Why am I suffering? It's because you're not living righteously. You don't have God in your heart. I'll give you an example. Many people, they chase things of this world and they start to stock up things of this world. They chase these new iPhones, they chase this new women, they chase this new success, this new men, these new houses, this new fame, this new clothing, this new money. They're always chasing. They're always left unsatisfied. That's why they keep on chasing. But chasing all these things is a dangerous way of living. And actually, we've been conditioned like that from a very young age by society, who teaches us that success in life is to have all these houses, all this money, all this fame, all this. And this is actually a dangerous teaching, and we blindly follow this teaching, and it's a dangerous way of living. Why? Because it leads to greed. It leads to the love of money. It leads to selfish behaviors, selfish ambitions. It leads to arrogance. It leads to pride. It leads to unrighteous behaviors, such as the family next door is hungry, or maybe doesn't have money to pay their rent for the month, and they're struggling, and you're with your 2,000 euro iPhone, taking these selfies, and then you take $5 only and you give to them, but you make sure you capture that on camera. This is not living righteously, and the whole world is doing it. And during this time, God is nowhere in the picture. God is nowhere in the picture, and God is the light. And so if God is nowhere in the picture, then there is no light in the picture. And that's why you have this darkness in your life. And that's why you're struggling in life. And that's why you're suffering in life. The Bible tells us in Matthew, and the deceit about it is that a lot of people think, well, no, I'm living life righteously. I'm a good person. I'm going to share it with you in just a little bit, just how deceived we are about this topic. The Bible says in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 22, Jesus says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal it. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in to steal it. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." He continues to say, "The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be filled with darkness." So what is Jesus saying here when he says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in to steal it"? Jesus is not, the meaning of this is not, don't save money or don't store up any treasures. Jesus is talking about an attitude of the heart. It's about the motivation of your heart. It's the intention for those things. It's the real motivation. It's the sincerity behind those things. When people start to be dependent on these worldly things, dependent on their money, dependent on their possessions, on the worldly things, that's where greed starts to come in. That's where the love of these things start to come in. So now you start to build up selfish ambitions, and that's where you start to put God on the back burner of your life. So the attitude of the heart is actually in the wrong place. And so when you start to stock up on all these on your money, and you start piling up these treasures, it's not about that. It's about where your heart is, where your attitude is when you're doing those things. And the people who are storing up, and then they become selfish and greedy, and they just want more and more and more, and they're always chasing, they're never satisfied, because they're always chasing these worldly things, and their attitude of the heart is in the wrong place. There could be a child dying of hunger, and yet they're on the selfie and just pride, ego, and superiority, taking a photo of just giving a poxy little €5 to the poor, as they taking a phone where they're taking a selfie with their €2,000 phone, and so on and so forth, or €1,000 shoes on their feet, and they're offering €2 to the poor person, the homeless person, or the hungry child, and so on and so forth. If a child has to go to steal bread to eat or to feed his family, we as a society must be ashamed of ourselves. And so this is what Jesus is talking about. It's about an attitude of the heart. It's not about storing these things. It's not about having wealth, and it's not about having possessions. It's about how you use those things that you have. You're storing. You're chasing, but then someone's hungry, dying of hunger right beside you, doesn't have money to pay their rent maybe, or doesn't have shoes on their feet, or doesn't have a shelter, or doesn't have clothes on their back, and so on and so forth. But you're storing, getting that new iPhone, getting that new car, getting that new You say, yeah, well, I don't have money to give to other people. You got money for €1,000 iPhone. You got money for €1,000 shoes on your feet. You got money to go out every night and drink and eat and do this, that, and the other. And you say, yeah, well, I'm the one that worked for it. I deserve to treat myself. This is exactly what Jesus is talking about. Then Jesus continues to say, store up for yourselves instead treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. And so Jesus is saying, stock up for yourself treasures in heaven. Instead of stocking treasures on earth, which I've just described, Jesus is saying, stock up treasures in heaven instead. How do we stock up treasures in heaven? By living in the way of Christ, living by Christ, living with a heart oriented toward God, living a prayerful life where we pray to God. Prayer means you're speaking, you're conversing with God. Like you go out one evening and you're conversing with someone, you're building that relationship with someone. It's exactly the same thing. Prayer means you're conversing with God, you're speaking with God, you're building that relationship with God. And the more you speak with God, the more you build your relationship with Him. The more you get to know Him, the more you get to know His ways, the more you live righteously. So stocking up treasures in heaven is about living righteously. What does that mean? You see someone who's hungry, go and feed them. Even if it means taking from your own stash where you have stocked up. Even if it means buying a €700 phone as opposed to a €1,000 phone. But help that person as Jesus would. That's what it means to be righteously. A lot of people think they're living righteously. Oh, deep down in my heart, I'm a good person. No, that's the deceit. Unless you're living like Christ, unless you're feeding the poor, unless you're sheltering the homeless, unless you're clothing those who have no clothes, unless you're doing these kind of actions that are of Christ, you're not a righteous person. That's why you have the darkness in your heart. That's why you're still chasing the money. That's why you're still chasing the possessions. That's why you're still unsatisfied. How many wealthy, rich millionaires do you know or you've heard of where they have all the money, they have all the possessions, yet they're still unsatisfied, they're still unhappy, they're still depressed, they still go and commit suicide? It's not what you have, Jesus is trying to tell us. It's how you use what you have. It's the attitude of your heart regarding those things. And so Jesus is saying, stock up treasures in heaven by living righteously by Christ, living with a heart oriented toward God, praying, building a relationship with God, having God on the front burner of your house, not on the back burner of your house. It's about having the intentions of your heart correct, straight, oriented toward God. It's about having your priorities straight. A lot of people are chasing. There's priorities. It's all about worldly things. It's all about themselves. It's all about selfish ambition. It's all about pride, ego, superiority, and then they deceive into thinking they're a good person just because they don't intentionally go out and harm someone. But that's a deceit. They're wrong. It's about having your priorities straight. Your priorities need to be oriented toward God. Your priority needs to be the people of God. If someone's hungry, that's your priority. Someone's struggling to pay their rent, that's your priority. Someone doesn't have clothes or shoes on their feet. That's your priority. Not your fancy phone, not your fancy clothes, not your fancy cars. That's your priority. It's about having your priorities straight. If you see someone hungry, feed the poor, clothe those who have no clothes, shelter the homeless, help someone pay their electricity. If someone is struggling, be the person who goes and takes the burden off of them. If you can lift the burden off of someone's shoulders, lift it. I mean, why would you not? I tell you, why would you not? Because you're like the first person Jesus said, you store up treasures on earth, yet you do not store up treasures in heaven. You store up treasures on earth. You're thinking you're rich. You have this, that, on the other. But I'm telling you, you are spiritually poor. This is why you're unsatisfied. This is why your life is filled with darkness. This is why you struggle, and this is why you suffer. It's the teachings of the world from a young age that condition us to think, chase these things, and you're going to be satisfied. What a dangerous teaching. What a dangerous way to live. And so by living in this way, you have God on the back burner of your life, and God is the light. In other words, the light is at the back burner all the way back there. And so what you are currently seeing is all darkness. And so we need to start putting God first. And that's when our minds will start to change, and we will start to have a righteous mind. And we will, when we start putting God first, we will start to have a righteous mind. And that's when we're going to start using righteously the things of this world. That's what Jesus was talking about. He wasn't talking about don't store, don't have money, don't have possessions. No, you can have them. Use those things righteously. That's what Jesus was talking about. But in order for you to use those things righteously, you have to have a righteous mind. Otherwise, without a righteous mind, how can you use something righteously? You can't. And the only way to have a righteous mind is if you put God first. You put God first. And it's not just words. It needs to show in your actions. If it's a genuine change, it needs to show in your actions. And I don't mean actions like holding your phone, giving a poor person €5 and make sure the whole world sees it. As you're dressed in €1,000 shoes, you're holding a €1,000 phone, and it's just a spare change that you just so happen to have found. That's not what I'm talking about. That just makes you a hypocrite. A hypocrite. And so Jesus is saying having wealth and having possessions and having a lot of things and having good things is not the problem. That is not the problem. It becomes a problem when you prioritize those things and you put them before God. You put them before God's ways. What are God's ways? God says feed the people. God says clothe the people. He says shelter the homeless. Do good to the other. Treat others how you want to be treated. Love, Jesus says, love one another just as I have loved you. Jesus came and gave his life for us. That's how much he loved us and loves us. To that level. But we are far too busy thinking of ourselves with pride and ego and superiority. It's all about me, 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 me. We've got people starving in Africa. We've got starving babies in Africa. Where in many other Western countries, they throw food away. There is enough food in this world to feed everybody. But it is the way we are designed and how we go about things. We ourselves allow for starving babies in Africa to starve, and then the Western world just throws things away. You have your neighbor who can barely pay the rent, yet we're walking around with €2,000 phones. And I'm not saying my phone is €2,000, it's not. We have people who can barely put food on their table, but yet we're out every night, we're throwing money here, we're throwing money there. Pride, ego, superiority, so on and so forth. In case you thought you were living righteously, you're not. Maybe you didn't know before, but you know now. And so don't be that hypocrite who's commenting on social media, oh, the poor people, oh, the poor family, oh, the poor, when you're not doing anything about it. Don't be that hypocrite. If someone needs your help, even if it means taking a little, even if it means you're going to lack a little bit this week or this month or this year, do it. God will bless you for that. The good that you do will never go to waste in God's eyes, put it that way. And so Jesus continues to say, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In other words, what's Jesus saying? He's saying you will know what you prioritize in your life by where you spend your time and where you spend your money. You will know what you prioritize in life, and you will know if you're a hypocrite or not by where you spend your time and where you spend your money. Because where you spend your time and where you spend your money clearly shows everybody and yourself what is your intention, what is the real motivation of your heart, what you prioritize, and what you value most. See how easy it is? And so if you say, well, I care about these people, but your actions so show something else, you're a hypocrite. Maybe nobody's called you a hypocrite before. But if that's what you're doing, you're a hypocrite. God wants righteous actions. And if you don't have righteous actions, if you're not showing up in the world with righteous actions, that is why you are struggling. That is why you are suffering. What goes around comes around. What you sow, you will reap. What you give out will come back to you. What you have inside you is what you will draw more of to you. And so God wants righteous actions. And if there ain't no righteous actions, that's why you suffer. That's why you struggle. Having righteous actions is only possible if you have a righteous mind. Having a righteous mind is only possible if you have a heart that is oriented toward God. In other words, it's a heart that has as its priority the things of God. God says, help one another, love one another. If you have a heart that is oriented toward that, then you will have a righteous mind and you will have righteous actions. And so that is what will start showing up in your own life. A lot of people think, well, if I give, that's a lack for me. No, when you give, you receive. When you hold and you don't give, that's when you don't receive. So then Jesus continues to say, and this is an important part, the eye is the lamp of the body. The eye is the lamp of the whole body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be filled with light. But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be filled with darkness. What is Jesus saying here? What Jesus is saying is that the world around us, the atmosphere around us, the environment around us, we see the world through our eyes. And when we have eyes that is focused on God, then our mind and body will be filled with light. If we have eyes that is focused on righteousness, then our whole body will be filled with light. But if we have eyes that is focused on the worldly things and unrighteous things and selfish ambition and so on, and eyes that don't even see God, then your mind and body will be filled with darkness. And because your mind and body is filled with darkness, that is why you suffer in life, and that is why you struggle in life. Keep in mind that only light can drive out darkness. If you go into a dark room, you just turn the light on and then there's light. Only light can drive out darkness. And so if you want to get rid of the suffering and every negativity and the sins and the corruption and everything of your life, you need to bring God into your life. When you have it, whether your life is dark or whether your life is filled with light, it depends on how much you have allowed God into your heart. That's all it boils down to. You can take all the teachings of the world and you say, well, it's that and it's this and it's the other. Could be, but when you take everything down to its very, very root, everything boils down to how much God you have in your life. But with that being said, don't be deceived by the fake light out there, because there's also a fake light out there. The Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 13 through 15, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Is it not surprising then is it not surprising then if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness? Let me read that again. Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Is it not surprising then if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness? Be very, very careful of people masquerade as servants of righteousness. Let me give €5 to the homeless person there. Click, click. That's not the work of God. That's masquerading as a servant of righteousness, which means it's not righteousness. This is why you have struggles in your life. You could be successful in one area of your life, but you're lacking in another area of your life, because unrighteousness will always rub off. And so you have to go down to the very, very core of something, and it all boils down to how much you have opened your heart and allowed God to come into your life. Welcome Jesus into your heart. That's what it boils down to. So next time you want to help someone and you want to take a photo of it with a bit of change you found in your pocket, rethink that. And really go out and help that person wholeheartedly from your heart, and stop playing foolish games. Treat others how you want to be treated. I'll leave it there because I might have been a bit hard in this video. So if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Click that notification button to get notified every time I release a new video. For those of you who do not already know, I do live prayer every Sunday. More information can be found in the link below. And live prayer does not take place here, but it takes place on Zoom. So until next time, God bless you, and the peace of Jesus be with you.